Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Expanding Digital Literacy Informational Webinar. My name is Andrea Lewandowski. I am the Adult Services Specialist here at the New Jersey State Library. With me today are some faces, some people from the State Library, Jen Brenner, the Deputy State Librarian and Director of Library Development, and Maura Walsh, who is the Grants Manager. Maura, would you like to say hello?
Yes, good morning. Hello, everyone. I'm the Grants Manager and the LSD Coordinator, and this is
Okay, and Jen Brenner, let me see if I can unmute you. Allow your mic. So if you would like to say hello, you are welcome to.
Hi, everyone. Jen Brenner, as Andrea said, I'm the Deputy State Librarian, and I'm just here to support Andrea and this project in any way possible. Thanks.
All right. And it's good to see all of you here today who are attending. I am excited to share more about this opportunity. And now I have to figure out how to get back to my slides. So let me stop sharing and then I will share again. Okay. So in today's webinar, I'm going to give you an introduction to expanding digital literacy. We're going to talk about the purpose of the grant opportunity and provide some key information, including dates and grant details. I'm going to talk about the application guidelines and process. I'll show you Foundant. You may be familiar with Foundant already, but if not, I'll show you how you can log in and basically what that will look like. We'll talk a little bit about the application review process, what happens after the application has been submitted, reporting and monitoring for grantees, and then there will be an opportunity for questions. So a little bit more about this grant opportunity. Expanding digital literacy provides funding for public libraries to teach digital skills and provide technology in communities with high need. Digital skills training can cover a variety of topics, including using digital tools, accessing information, avoiding scams, and protecting privacy. While libraries may opt to focus their activities on digital skills acquisition directly, so actually just teaching those skills, they can also propose projects that incorporate digital skills in the context of other purposes. So things like workforce development, entrepreneurship, telehealth, financial literacy, or something else. And this grant is intended for libraries in the early stages of developing digital skills programs. EDL, I'll use expanding digital literacy and EDL interchangeably to talk about this grant opportunity. EDL is a continuation of the state library's work in digital literacy over the past 5 years. And even before then, I mean, digital literacy, digital skills have been at a root of what the state library has been supporting in the state. More recently, in the past few years, the state library collaborated with the New Jersey Office of Broadband Connectivity and played a key role in developing the state's digital equity plan. And that also included developing strategies for implementing the New Jersey Digital Equity Act funds. Unfortunately, the Digital Equity Act was terminated earlier this year, but this grant opportunity provides funding to still advance that work of digital skills, digital literacy. EDL is inspired by the Digital Equity Act in a few different ways, including a focus on serving underserved populations, including seniors, English language learners, low-income households, and individuals with disabilities. You can also identify underserved populations in your community that your project will target that may be outside of those listed groups. EDL also echoes some of the language in the New Jersey Digital Equity Plan about increasing confidence in technology. We know how important that is about the feelings about those skills that you have. So we want to increase confidence in technology and digital skills. You know, you can see just how the world has shaped over the past few years in light of COVID. We see more and more that people must use the internet to accomplish important tasks for their jobs, to access healthcare, to engage in civic life. and events, and to participate in education. And in many cases, there is no alternative that is not online. So EDL enables applicants, the library is applying, to identify those community needs and develop programs to address them. So here are the key dates for this grant opportunity. On July 28th, the program guidelines were released and the application opened in Foundant. Today, you are here in this webinar about the grant opportunity. On Tuesday, the first FAQ document will be released, and that will include questions that have been received so far to the grants@njstatelib.org email address, and also questions from this webinar. And there will be answers posted weekly until September 9th of this year. And so you can look for those. I'll tell you the website where you can find that information and how to ask a question if you don't have a question now, but you have one after the webinar. September 12th at 11:59 p.m. is when the application portal closes. That is a deadline for the applications. November 1st of this year is the grant period, is when the grant period begins. The grant period will end on August 31st, 2026. The interim report will be due on April 13th, 2026. As I mentioned, the grant will end on August 31st, and the final day to submit reimbursements is September 15th, 2026. The final reports will be due a month after the end of the grant period, so September 30th, 2026. The funding available is total $100,000. That's the estimate for this project, and we anticipate that will result in approximately 4 to 6 grants. The minimum award is $15,000 and the maximum award is $25,000. The grant period of performance is expected to be from November 1st, 2025 through August 31st, 2026. Keep in mind that this is not a full year. So plan projects that will have expenses incurred within that grant period. Eligible applicants are public libraries, and you can refer to the statutes there for those definitions. While libraries may choose to partner with other types of libraries or organizations, the eligible applicants are public libraries, and so they are the ones that would be receiving the funds. The application guidelines are available on the New Jersey State Library website at www.njstatelib.org/digital literacy. That is where you will find the guidelines, the link to the application. The webinar recording will be posted there when it's available. I will try to get the webinar up as soon as possible, but that's likely not going to be until next week, so keep that in mind. If you have any questions, you must submit them to the NJSL grants email address, grants@njstatelib.org, and please use the subject title or subject line, Expanding Digital Literacy, so that we know what the question is in regards to. The answers will be posted weekly on the www.njstatelib.org/digital literacy webpage. They will be posted weekly beginning this Tuesday, August 12th, and the last day that they will be posted is Tuesday, September 9th. So please get your questions in before then. As I said, the application guidelines and other information are on njstatelib.org/digital literacy, and that's where you will find the link to Foundant. NJSL has used Foundant as its portal for grant applications for a few years now. So if you have applied for an NJSL grant or some funding in the past few years, it's likely that you have used Foundant before. But if not, I highly encourage you to log in and make sure that you don't have any issues accessing the application well in advance of the deadline. You don't want to have an issue with Foundant close to the deadline, especially since the application window is open beyond our operating hours. So unfortunately, I will not be available, or no one from the State Library will be available at 11 p.m. on September 12th to answer any questions or issues with Foundant. So please go in there, make sure everything works, make sure you can access anything, and let us know if you have any questions. In Foundant, you must create an organizational profile, and then from there, you'll be able to access and complete applications for open grant opportunities. At this time, there is only one available active grant, and that's this one, Expanding Digital Literacy. You can begin an application, close it, come back to it later, and make edits before submitting it. But you may want to work on your application responses in Microsoft Word and then copy and paste them into Foundant. It's up to you and your workflow. The list of questions is available to download at njstatelive.org/digital literacy, so you can see the questions and plan them before you open the form. And keep in mind that only complete applications received by September 12th, 2025 will be reviewed. After the deadline, the application will become inaccessible. And now let's talk about the application description. So as I mentioned, the application is available as a PDF on the State Library's website for you to review before completing it in Foundant. And this is what you will find in the Foundant form. So there's three main parts to the application. The first is the project details, including the name of your project. You'll come up with something brief and unique that you can use as the title for your project for our purposes. And you'll list the project manager. This person, your project manager, may be different from the person completing the application form. So these are the fields where you can add that person's contact information. The next part includes the narrative questions, which I'll be reviewing in the next few slides. These are the questions about the project where you can explain what you're proposing. And this section includes the questions that will be scored by evaluators. And you can see the rubric in the guidelines as well. That's in the final 2 pages of the guidelines. The last section includes the attachments. Forms A, B, and C must first be downloaded from the State Library's website, njstatelive.org/digital literacy, and then uploaded in Foundant in the attachment section. Form A is an Excel file that you will complete. Do not alter that form. Do not alter the formulas. Fill it out as is. And you can enter a 0 if no funds will be spent in a category. Additional instructions are in the guidelines about the budget summary form. Forms B and C must be completed and signed and then uploaded. Form C requires the signature of your library's board president, so plan ahead for time to have that completed. And now let's look at the narrative questions. The first question is about the community need. Keep in mind that the community need will be the basis for the rest of your project and the rest of your proposal. So we really want to know exactly what your community needs. And this is what the community needs, not what the library needs. The community, as you know, faces its own challenges, skills gaps, whatever hurdles that you are hoping to address through your proposed project. When you're writing this section, you may want to consider that all the difficulties that a person with limited technology skills faces, and then the impacts that has on other things, their abilities to, say, apply for a job, advance in their career, access healthcare or health information, attend school, or even support their children's education. And then, there's many other tasks that people have to do online. So what would that look like for that person? And then if there are difficulties faced by many people in the community, how would this affect them? How would this affect the wider community if there were these gaps? You may also consider how these difficulties are compounded by factors such as age, speaking a language other than English, having a low income, or living with a disability. So you know your community best, and this is the section where you can highlight the needs that are most important for the people that you serve. Remember that this response must be supported with evidence and data to back up the needs that you've identified. And an excellent response is one that appears to provide relevant, credible evidence and data to explain high community needs and existing barriers for the targeted population groups. The objective section should flow directly from the community needs that you just identified. You've shared the problem, and the objectives are the benchmarks that you plan to accomplish if you're provided the funds through expanding digital literacy. Keep in mind all of the components and outside forces acting on the project to make sure that your objectives are appropriate. You know, you only have so much money available through this grant or other resources that you might have in the library. It's the amount of time that this grant is covering, all those existing resources that you have, other things happening. So of course, we don't expect you to solve everything that you shared in the community need, but you know, your objectives are going to continue that story that you're telling about the community needs and what you're hoping to accomplish with the awarded funds. And if any of these sections seem like they may be tricky, you can always look for information. There's a lot of resources out there on grant proposal writing and crafting these different sections if you feel like you need to brush up on some of those skills. So I highly recommend that as well. And an excellent response will include objectives that are detailed, realistic, and appear achievable within the project scope. The objectives are also directly aligned to the community need. From there, you'll get into the project plan. The project plan will include the steps that you will take in order to meet your objectives. You should be detailed and include enough information so the project is clearly explained in a logical manner. Consider not only what will happen during the project, but how you will reach members of the community. Most importantly, the population groups you identified when discussing the need. There's room within this question to present your project plan in a way that makes sense to you, but the important elements you should consider include the when and where of how the key activities are taking place, who is doing the work, and how you are communicating what is happening. Answer all the questions that a person learning about your project might have, especially someone who's not familiar with your library or your past work. And an excellent response here will include a project plan that is detailed and specific. It will include milestones, timeline, staffing, and outreach plan to achieve stated objectives with the resources provided through the grant program. The scope of the project will also appear sufficient to meet the community need. For your evaluation, the next section, this is the measure of whether the objectives are being met through the project plan. And this could be qualitative, it could be quantitative, or both. You may consider the evaluation of the project as it's happening so that you can make adjustments during the implementation. Evaluation will probably or may also occur at the end of the project. The evaluation methods will depend on the project that you're proposing. And keep in mind how your plan for evaluation can help you stay on track and also tell the story of your project's impact. And an excellent response will include a clear, detailed plan for collecting data to evaluate progress. And summative and/or formative evaluation will be undertaken. The next question is about community impact. Expanding digital literacy is intended for libraries in the early stages of developing digital skills programs. The community impact goes beyond the objectives of the project and provides details on how the project will make a difference on the targeted population groups and the wider library community. So consider the impact of expanding digital skills more widely in the community and what that will enable. Improved digital skills can result in positive outcomes in many other ways, such as better job opportunities or increased access to healthcare, or any of those things that you've kind of already talked about in the community needs section. An excellent response is one that proposes a new project for the library. The intended impact is thoroughly described, and the response appears to demonstrate significant impact on the targeted population groups. The next question is about capacity building. This grant opportunity provides funding for a limited amount of time, but we hope that there will be something of lasting value to the library. Capacity refers to the resources a library has available, so things like staff, expertise or knowledge, equipment, money, all of that, those things that come together so that a library can do the work that it is committed to undertaking. So in this section, consider again the community need and how this project will better equip the library to meet those challenges in the future. An excellent response includes a comprehensive and clear plan for capacity building that will inform or improve library services beyond the grant period. The next section is the budget and budget narrative. This section will be an explanation of the expenditures listed in Form A, budget summary form. The budget guidelines are in the grant doc guidelines on the NJSL website, and I think by now you can probably repeat the URL along with me, njstatelib.org/digital literacy. And in that section of the guidelines, you will also find information about allowable and unallowable expenses as well as indirect costs. And this section is scored only as acceptable and unacceptable. The other sections in the rubric have three different ranges. And an acceptable response is complete, the proposed budget, and appears to be in line with the scope of the proposed project. And all costs appear to be reasonable, necessary, allowable, and allocable. And the final question is a summary. It's a brief synopsis of the project in no more than 250 words. This answer is actually not scored. This is used in communication about the grants after the fact. So this is a summation of everything, but again, it is not scored. Okay. So in order to submit all of these responses to the narrative questions and upload your forms and everything, you'll be using Foundant. There are instructions listed here for accessing Foundant, especially if you haven't used it before. So this link here, and the link is also available in the guidelines and on that web page on the State Library's website. It will take you to a login screen where you can either use existing credentials or create a new account. And if you're making a new account, you'll be prompted to create an organizational profile with information about your library. There are required fields, including the organization's legal name, contact information, address, EIN, and UEI number, but complete the required fields as they're mentioned in the form. And either after you've logged into your existing account or after you set up your new account, you'll see a dashboard with an apply button in the top navigation bar. Click on apply, and then you'll see the active applications. And as I mentioned before, Expanding Digital Literacy is the only currently available application. And this is a screenshot that shows you where that apply button will appear once you're logged in. And then you can see information about Expanding Digital Literacy in the middle of the page. From here, you can preview the application. The PDF is also available on the State Library's website. And then there's the apply button where you can view the live form. And once again, I recommend logging into Foundant well in advance of September 12th and make sure that you are familiar with the form as soon as you can. Okay, so after you have submitted your application by the due date, the review process will begin. So make sure that you submit the application by September 12th, 2025 at 11:59 p.m. Only complete applications that are received through Foundant by the deadline will be reviewed. There will be a preliminary screening to verify that the application is complete and that the applicant is eligible. And that will also include that all the forms have been submitted and everything is filled in appropriately. Applications that pass the screening will be reviewed by a 3-member panel, and applications will be scored on a 100-point scale using the rubric that's included in the application guidelines. And that's on the last 2 pages. Reporting and monitoring for grantees. Grantees will be notified after the application deadline and before the grant period begins, which is anticipated to be November 1st, 2025. There will be a signed grant agreement, and as the project begins, grantees are required to collect performance data and evaluate the effectiveness of their projects. NJSL will provide instructions and forms for all required reporting. There will be an interim report due on April 13th, which will be about midway through the grant period. And the final report will be due a month after the grant period ends on September 30th, 2026. That has been a lot of me talking. So now we're going to get into some questions, any questions that you have. And I want to remind you again that if you have questions after the webinar, please send them to grants@njstatelib.org with the subject Expanding Digital Literacy. The answers will be posted weekly beginning on Tuesday, August 12th on the State Library's webpage, njstatelib.org/digital literacy. And that question document released on Tuesday will also include questions from today's webinar. And I recommend going and looking at the Q&A document as it's posted. There may be questions that you haven't thought of that you'll find the answers to. It may also give you some ideas just based on some of the questions that are coming through that may help you to strengthen your proposal or just give you other things to consider. And I think I mentioned this before, but the web page is also where you will find the recording from today's webinar. Okay, I am going to see if I can see the Q&A or the chat. So, okay. And I don't know if I would have to see if I can give you permission to unmute. So let me also work on that. If you want to put in the chat that you would like to unmute and ask your question, please do that, and then I can do that. But let's see what's in here so far. Will you be sending out the slides after the webinar today? I know you mentioned the recording would be posted online next week. Yes, that is an excellent point. I will save the slides as a PDF, and they will be available in the recording section on that webpage. So look for them underneath that. And can you please share again the information regarding when awarded libraries receive the funds? So awarded funds will be on a reimbursement basis, and the grant period is from November 1st through August 31st. Does that answer your question? Otherwise, I can ask if, oh, okay. Are there any restrictions regarding the use of DEI language in our applications? Oh, that is good. Maura, do you know if LSTA has said anything about DEI language?
Well, the LSTA specifically, no. There are executive orders, however. We are not allowed to. We will answer this in the Q&A document more specifically, but there are changes in how we express DEI and talk about it. So we will get that information in the Q&A, which is much better to have it in black and white and in writing rather than just my telling you right now, because it's very important.
So in case I see, Michelle, you said you couldn't hear. So this is a question that will be included in the Q&A document on Tuesday. And that is a good point to bring up that this is LSTA funding from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So this is federal funding. And so we are using federal guidance to make sure that everything is compliant and following executive orders and things like that. So we'll clarify in the Q&A document. Would this grant be appropriate to purchase laptop computers for computer classes? So equipment and supplies are both eligible categories for this grant opportunity. When it comes to any type of equipment purchase, I would always encourage you to consider the community need and the other sections about impact when discussing why this is appropriate and how it's going to serve the community, because equipment, all of the expenses from the project must, you should be linking back to that community need and how this is going to address that community need. But yes, they are eligible. Will awarded libraries have to go through a full financial audit during the reporting process? Maura, I will ask you that one.
Yes. Okay, I think you might be referring to what is known as a single audit, which has to do with the amount, after a certain amount threshold of federal funding is received, awardees are required to do a single audit. So if that's what you're referring to, it depends upon how much funding your entity receives in total, not just for this, but this could be a tipping point for you, certainly. Also, it will appear as part of your regular audit, but not specifically for this ward. If that's, again, all of these questions will be answered more completely in the Q&A. So be sure to read that. In fact, Andrea, the Q&A is required right before you can apply.
Yes. The application will ask that you have reviewed the Q&A document. We want to make sure that you are aware of those questions, and so it will refer back to that. Thank you, Maura. Any other questions? And am I missing questions that might be somewhere else? I don't see a Q&A option. All right, we'll give a couple more minutes. We do have plenty of time. I will say I am just so thrilled to see we had, I believe, 38 people registered for this webinar. So it is exciting to see that you've looked at this grant opportunity and you're interested. And so I hope that you are encouraged to apply and, you know, really think about how this can benefit your community. Right, I see Stephanie is raising her hand. So Stephanie, I am going to enable your microphone. Okay, so you should be able to unmute and ask your question. Okay, while I wait for you, Akachi asks, what are the limitations on the types of resources the grant can be used for? Let's say like language education, such as Pimsleur. I find quite a bit of patrons here struggle with finding resources to learn English. We have a language program here at the library, however, it peaks at a certain level. Software, I believe, is an eligible expense, but again, you do want to make sure that you're considering the grant period of performance, not being a full year. So I think we'll, again, I'll use, you know, the Q&A document to go into more detail, but so you may just want to keep that in mind with the application. Maura, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, so you can't prepay for programming or licenses. So, but we can prorate it. So if you sign up for like a year's license and you only have 8 months in your what we call the period of performance of the award, we could fund the 8 months, but not the other 4. So yeah, so what Andrea said is correct. The only thing I'm adding is that we can prorate if part of it falls outside of the period of performance.
And there's another question. Since this is a reimbursement-based grant and considering the current political climate, can you confirm whether funding will remain reliably available to support reimbursements? So,
do you want me to answer?
Yeah, I would
okay. So we have funding through the next year. Our LSTA funding has been given through the next year. So unless it was rescinded by the federal government, which we don't anticipate happening, but of course, it's difficult to know exactly what could happen. So we're doing this in good faith that we have been told that we have the money. We're operating on that basis. So yes, I think that we can guarantee it as much as we can.
Thank you, Maura. Will North Star be available September so I guess through the grant period? I know that we have received our information about our budget, but I don't know specific budget lines. So I will, please look at the Q&A document, and also North Star Libraries will be notified about any extensions separately. So I don't have a specific answer to that yet, but please stay tuned.
This actually says September to November 2025. Do you think
Okay.
that means through 20?
Well, the North Star, I believe, goes through September 30th. So, the new contract would start October 1st. So I'll have to get back on that one.
So they're only asking about 2 months.
Yes, sir. All right. Any other questions? And Stephanie, again, I don't know if you had raised your hand in error, but you are unmuted if, or your mic has been enabled if you did have a question. Okay, so I will put the email address again into the chat so that you have it. And after that, I think I'm going to close the webinar. Thank you again for attending. Thank you for your excellent questions. And again, please look for that Q&A document on the New Jersey State Library's website. I can put that in again, www.njstatelib.org/digital literacy. Patrons come to our library to use their laptops and devices. However, there are only 2 outlets available on the floor. We had hoped to install more, but the price was restrictive. Would something like this be eligible?
The answer is no, because that would be considered capital improvements. But basically, LSTA tells us that if a librarian can do it with something that you would find in a normal toolbox, that could be allowable. If you need to hire an electrician to come in to put in further outlets, that would not be allowable. And that's just because capital improvements are never allowed with LSTA funding.
Thank you, Maura. And the budget guidelines can be found on pages 2, 3, and 4 of the guidelines. So that goes into more detail about what is allowable and what is not allowable. And again, if you have questions, please reach out. Okay. Well, with that said, I am going to stop sharing and stop the webinar. Thank you again for your time, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.